LEGO continues their line of classic remakes with a modern take on 1987's Blacktron Renegade, a now legendary early space set. With this model following in the footsteps of 2023's well-received Blacktron Cruiser, I think it's safe to say there's been a lot of hype around this set ever since it was rumored. So today, not only will I be showing the two reimagined spaceships side by side, but I've also managed to pick up a copy of the original 1987 Renegade to see if the new version faithfully captures the likeness and features of its classic counterpart. Let's take a closer look. A huge thank you to LEGO for sending over the new 2025 Blacktron Renegade. The new Renegade is a pretty impressive set, boasting 1,151 pieces. The set comes with 3 of the same Blacktron minifigure remakes that we saw in the 2023 gift with purchase, along with a new Blacktron Classic Space robot. There's a ton more to unpack with each model, but I've got to show you them here side by side so you can see the size difference for yourself. This is definitely not a one-to-one recreation, as the new one is substantially larger, which shouldn't be too surprising given that the original model only had 313 pieces to the new model's well over 1,000. The original set is actually kind of crazy. I was looking up some of the statistics about it. Of course, it was released in 1987, making it almost 40 years old at this point. And back then, it would have cost you $30 to get this 313-piece set, which, once you factor in inflation, is well over $80 today. So putting that in perspective, the new one is a much better deal than this one ever was. And I say that because it's believe it or not, even harder to get your hands on today. I paid about $200 for this version of the set. But I'll be completely honest with you, the new 2025 version is pretty much superior to the original in every conceivable way. And we're going to spend the rest of this video unpacking why. Naturally, LEGO has had, well, almost those 40 years to improve. So a lot of what you're seeing in the new model is just pieces that simply did not exist back in 1987. And all the things that were done really well back in 1987 have been carried over to the new model. I mean, a few of these remakes have been a bit hit or miss, I think especially of Magisto's Magical Workshop, which definitely lacked the magic for me. But rather, this reminds me a lot more of the Galaxy Explorer remake, and it checks all the right boxes. In terms of the building experience, you get 2 instruction booklets, so you could build this with 2 people, though it becomes quite easy to see that one of the instruction booklets is much more substantial than the other. So pair yourself up with a really slow builder, and I'm sure you both will have a great time. Ironically, it is in this smaller booklet that you'll find all the fun facts about Blacktron 2, including a brief history of the theme, credit to the designer, which is a thing I thought they were doing away with, but I'm very happy to see it here, as well as a tease to an alternate build you'll find for this model. Now, unfortunately, at the time of recording this video, the instructions for the alternate model, of course, aren't online yet, just because they didn't want it to leak, but that is so cool to see, especially since this theme was really big on modularity, ripping them apart and making new zany spaceships. And beyond that too, there are fun facts scattered throughout the building process. It costs LEGO virtually nothing to dream these things up, and it adds a ton of fun to building the model. I suppose I should highlight too, while we're talking about it, the original instructions from '87. These, of course, are gorgeous, and the model comes together in much fewer steps than the new one does. I just can't get enough of these, and I'm so glad this is in such great shape too. On the back, you can see the combiner models for the various sets of the waves. A huge feature of Blacktron in general is the modularity, the interchangeability. And the question I had right away is, would the new modules on the 2025 version be compatible with the gift with purchase remake of the Invader? And no. Unfortunately, they are not compatible. A similar clip system is employed in the remake of the Renegade, but it is configured in such a way that it is not interchangeable with the 2023 Invader. However, I will say that this new clip system is superior in that you can arrange the modules anywhere you want on the spacecraft. And I found it to be well worth my time making a few modifications to the Blacktron Invader remake so that you can make some pretty cool reconfigurations. I mean, is that not the coolest thing ever? So if you do have the Blacktron gift with purchase from 2023, definitely worth making the modifications to make this happen. And if for some reason LEGO continues to give us Blacktron remakes, hopefully they'll stay consistent with the clip system. I think what they've got now works pretty well. Anyway, let's get the Blacktron Cruiser out of here and take a look at just the two Renegades. The big gimmicks of the set beyond the modularity is the fact that they can carry some extra cargo. In the original, that was a pretty interesting little mechanism. The backside of the craft would open up with the use of hinge bricks, and then you could pop out this canister. Inside the canister was a little tiny surprise. A very bare bones four-wheeled ground vehicle. To be honest, it doesn't look like it's good for much of anything beyond transport, but it's kind of adorable, and I love the elaborate setup for transporting this tiny little thing around. And I think that's where the most significant improvement in the 2025 version comes along. Instead of giving you a tiny little craft, the remake goes all out and omits the box section entirely. It's coupled that with a much more streamlined mechanism. Moving this lever to the side drops a much more substantial ground vehicle. It's like a space pickup truck, if you will. It's got plenty of room in the front for a minifigure and then a completely open back for hauling around whatever you so desire. And if that wasn't fun enough, the spacecraft can seamlessly pick it up and lock it into place. No extra finagling required. That's accomplished primarily with the use of those rubber bushing pieces. Another similarity that the Renegade remake shares with its 1987 counterpart is the use of exclusively prints. You've probably noticed by now all the control panels scattered throughout the various cockpits of the new Renegade. From the cheese slopes to the 2x2 tile in the main driver's seat, plus some of the other extra details you'll find scattered around. Of course, you got the big logo on the front, but also the very faithfully recreated little button panels on the 1x2 slopes. And it's here that you can see that there have definitely been some printing improvements over the past 40 years, thank goodness. But to get that piece recreated faithfully all these years later, that just warms your heart, does it not? Hopefully all these pieces will show up on Pick-a-Brick and can be used in all sorts of Blacktron mocks in the future. Let's look to the underside of the vehicles here for a second, where you'll find built-in landing gear on the classic Renegade, but the designers actually integrated retractable landing gear in the new version. It's not the most seamless process, nowhere near as automatic as the deployment of the land vehicle, but I'm just glad that it's here. It makes use of those Mario 4x4 plates, which I think is very fitting. They look like great feet. I've also got to highlight that there is just more modularity featured in the remake than the 1987 original. In addition to the front two sections popping off, you can also break off the back thrusters, meaning you could flip the whole orientation of the spaceship around. That is not a feature you'll find on the original. And while I think these side little crafts are supposed to be able to come off, they're a bit of a pain in the butt to remove. The new model remedies this by simply attaching them with two studs. And these are fun little craft. They're finicky, don't get me wrong, but they can easily be made to accommodate a minifigure and then disguise themselves as the Blacktron logo when not in use. The instructions also make a fun note of one of the other improvements made to the vessel over the years. Those are these extra fuel cells that have been added. Just a little Easter egg, and honestly, I like the extra pop of red it brings. I suppose the last bit of the ship that we have yet to explore is the front cockpit. As you can see, it's been expanded considerably to accommodate the set's extra minifigure. And I'll confess that this was the part of the ship I had the hardest time warming up to when I originally saw the set for the first time. But now that I've had it for a week or so, it really doesn't bother me all that much. I think it's just the squared off boxy dimensions which stand in pretty stark contrast to the Invader gift with purchase. But when you look at the two side by side, I mean, it's pretty fitting. It's also great just to see an original detail replicated here with the same exact sort of laser cannons mounted beneath the wings here, which, much like the original, can fold in and out a little bit. Very, very fun. The assembly here on the nose is especially fascinating too. Using this trapezoidal hinged whatever it is fits really nicely into place there. And of course, that is printed. It's so cool to see these side by side. And just from a personal standpoint, This set, both of these sets, you know, brought me a tremendous amount of joy. And I am so sad that I sold my original Invader, because it would have been really cool to start playing with the modularity of both. All that being said, though, clearly the 2025 model is an amazing improvement on an absolutely iconic spaceship from the 80s. Despite, you know, its pretty radical design, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a classic space fan who dislikes the original Renegade. And even so, we now have a better version that's a lot cheaper to get than it is to pick up a used or especially a new one of these. And it's got printed elements, it's got those great new minifigures with the back printing, it's bigger, it's modular. This is already shaping up to be one of my favorite sets of 2025, and it's not even 2025 yet. I think that's about gonna do it for me though. I'm really curious to hear what you make of this, and definitely leave your thoughts down below of what classic set you'd like to see remade next. I'll definitely pass along the top responses to the LEGO group, and we'll see what they do with that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have yourself a great life, and I'll be seeing you again very soon for a lot more 2025 set reviews and videos.